Hi everybody, my name is Gary. Welcome to Sail Tales. This video is going to be about building the model boats, specifically about making the epoxy fillets that hold the plywood boats together. I hope this is helpful. I'm going to show you how I go about it. I've tacked together this plywood hull with CA. I will add epoxy fillets to all the joints and seams to hold it together and make her bomb-proof. I'm using a marine grade two-part epoxy called PC11. You can find this online or maybe at your local hardware store or building supply. I'll also use a screwdriver, a putty knife, a trowel, which is just a scrap of plywood that I've fashioned with a rounded end to leave a concave, nicely rounded surface on the fillet. Also have on hand my trusty pocket knife that'll come into play a little later on. I chose PC11 for this job because it's widely available and because it's packaged in small quantities, it's affordable. PC also makes another epoxy they call PC7. It's not a marine grade, but it's fine to use in our model boats. We don't leave our model boats in the water all the time. So let's mix up some epoxy. I'll scoop up a little ball of part A. And keep in mind the amount that you put out to start with is only half of what you're going to end up with by the time you mix the two parts together. Now the putty knife is contaminated with part A and I don't want that to get into the jar of part B. So I'll use a screwdriver to scoop up a ball of part B, and I just eyeball it to make the ball of one part about the same size as the ball of the other part. I'm going to wipe the screwdriver clean because I'm going to use it here in a little bit to apply the epoxy to the boat. This epoxy seems pretty stiff, but it softens up a little bit as you mix the two parts together. And the two parts are different colors, so it's pretty easy to see when you're not all mixed up completely. You want to keep working it over and over until those streaks of color disappear and the whole ball looks to be a uniform color. Don't expect to make all the fillets in the boat in one go. Mix a small batch of epoxy and do a few at a time. You'll develop a feel for just how much epoxy you can use up before it begins to set up and becomes unworkable. I'll use my screwdriver to put the epoxy in place, and I make an effort to push it up hard against the plywood so that it's actually stuck and not just sitting on a ball on top of the plywood. The trick now is to put in enough epoxy to be able to trowel out a nice fillet without having a terribly great amount of excess. After you've done a few of these, you'll get a feeling for just how much that is. Here the epoxy is in place, but it's pretty rough. I'll smooth it out with the rounded end of my plywood trowel. One smooth pass ought to do it. There, the trowel left a nicely rounded, smooth fillet, and it left a little track of excess along each side. I'll come back a little later and I'll use my pocket knife to scrape away those tracks of excess. Scraping off this excess is easiest when the epoxy has begun to firm up a bit, but don't leave it too long. If it does fully harden, sanding with sandpaper is about the only way to remove or reshape it. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you'll enjoy the building your own model boats. It can be a very satisfying experience.